Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melior Via. I am up here at Immortals Inc. tonight with Mikey.
What is up, John? How's life and how's it going?
Wow, it just got bright.
I know. Did you get flashbanged a little bit right there?
A little bit, yeah.
Was it like kind of like blindsided type activity right there?
Well, I saw you going for the Switch and I wasn't sure what it was going to be, and then I was suddenly wide awake.
I have like a emergency button right over here, so that was like the other one.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
Let's try not to have too many emergencies. I mean, I prefer to avoid those.
I mean, you know how we rock though, so
That's what I'm worried about.
kind of chaotic.
All right. So tonight I was hoping we could talk about a game book that I wanted to talk about a while ago. So this came out in the spring, and I was looking forward to talking about it. And Carlos got a whole bunch of copies in, and they sold out before we could talk about it. So finally he got some more copies in, and he said, yeah, okay, now we can do a recording because they might not sell out instantly. Right?
But they might sell out.
They still might sell out. So you might, if you're interested, you might want to come up and pick it up fairly soonish.
Link
The
below.
one I wanted to talk about is the Tal'Dorei Campaign Setting, and Campaign Setting Reborn, rather. And this is from Critical Role, which means most of our viewing audience probably knows more about it than I do.
Oh yeah, they probably do.
Yeah. So, in fairness, tell me when I screw up.
Just comment.
By all
okay?
means. Yeah.
We'll be watching.
This is the campaign setting from Critical Role. Matt Mercer is the DM of that campaign setting, and he did most of the writing on this. On this edition of it, he worked with Hannah Rose and James Heck, who both have several credits writing for Wizards of the Coast on other Dungeons & Dragons products directly. This originally came out in 2017, then it was published by Green Ronin, and this is the expanded version of the setting that's used for Vox Machina. It's revised and expanded. There's a 20-ish year timeline skip from the previous one, and this one is released by Darrington Press. Getting into the book, it's about 280 pages, so there's a whole lot here going on, and I do want to point out that with the book tucked inside of it, you get this nice little fold-out poster map of the continent of Tal'Dorei.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's
We
a
love a
whole
visualization.
lot of stuff there, and a lot of the contents of that map are referenced within the book in the Gazetteer section. We'll come back to that, though. Several chapters. The first 3 chapters really dive into the setting material. It's about 120 pages of that 280-page book, so more than a third of it, pushing on half, really. And it's specifically, Tal'Dorei is one continent of the world of Exandria. The first chapter talks about the world's background, touches on its connections to other planes, touches on the deities, and the past wars and tragedies that have taken place in the world, and then also the ongoing conflicts. There's a lot of material here to set up your adventures, so things that are in motion between different cities, between different countries, lots of stuff where you can easily see leading off into an adventure, or really leading off into a major war that your characters might want to take part in. Chapter 2 is all about allegiances. There's 12 prime deities. These are basically the good and neutral deities, 9 betrayer or evil deities, and then also 9 lesser deities. And all of these have different areas of expertise that your characters might want to pick for their allegiance, and each one of them has a holy symbol that's nicely illustrated within the text as well. After that, in the allegiances section, there's a number of different factions, 14 of them in fact, and each of these factions have different goals and relationships with other factions, and descriptions of some of the NPCs that are tied into them. A lot of this is character hooks and adventure hooks, so you could see different characters in a party having allegiances to different factions, or all of them being members of the same faction, or even just being hired by one of those factions to go out and undertake missions that are tied into that group's goals. In a few cases, they might be hired by one of these factions without realizing it. So these could be groups like the council that governs the nation of Tal'Dorei, or they could be, a thieves guild. So there's pretty broad scope here, but a whole lot of hooks. The next chapter of this is the Gazetteer, which again gets back into that map that I mentioned. It goes through the different parts of the continent, talks about what cultures are there, what And when you talk about the cultures, he's also talking about the different races that are inhabiting these different regions, as well as things like climate and nation states. And again, now we're getting into conflicts and relationships and trade and goals and all those sorts of things. This is, again, really well set up so that you have a lot of adventure hooks right there as you're going through and reading the different regions, where you go, oh, okay, here's why the characters might be here. Here's who the characters might interact with while they're there. Here are quests that they could go off on from each of these different places. And in many cases, those tie back into the different groups that we talked about, or even the different deities that we talked about previously. Subsections of the map are printed as appropriate when you're talking about specific regions. And there are several maps of different cities in here that are quite a bit more detailed so that you can dive in and see, all right, so here's this neighborhood of the city, and those are numbered and marked out for particular locations that are further described in the text. The regions are mostly broken down geographically, and then there's also climate notes, recent history notes, so you're keeping up on current events. And then there is a brief mention of Wildemount, which is another 5th edition D&D book, that one published by Wizards of the Coast. That is a neighboring continent on this same world, but obviously characters could go back and forth between them. Don't have to, but there's that potential there.
It's an Easter egg, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's a little more than an Easter egg.
So it's like vividly there for you to be like.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's also written by Matt Mercer. It's another Critical Role product. It's just that one's published by Wizards of the Coast. And we do have that on the shelf as well.
Down below.
There you go. Next section of the book gets into character options. There are 9 new subclasses that are very explicitly tied into the setting based on your standard Dungeons & Dragons classes. There are 6 new backgrounds for Dungeons & Dragons that are very explicitly tied into the setting. And then there's detailed descriptions of how all of your standard D&D races fit into the setting and interact with everybody else. There's also some non-standard races that are available through other materials, including furbolgs, half-giants, a few others, particularly goblinkin. And then there's also a section on adding a mixed ancestry race in here. Now, that's not something you'd normally see in D&D, but talking about things like a orc dwarf, so a character that's half orc and half dwarf, or a elf dragonborn, again, mixed ancestry species.
That'd be a crazy mix.
It kind of is. They don't really get very crunchy in the details on how to do that. It's more just kind of a, here's something you could do, and here's how you might want to do that.
It's like a German Shepherd Chihuahua mix.
Kind of.
Have you seen them?
Yeah, I have.
You seen them before?
Oh, yeah, it's unsettling.
What?
Yeah. After that, there's a few new feats, 7 of them. Again, things that are specific to the setting. After that, we get into a GM toolkit. There's a little bit on writing adventures and ideas for adventures, really leveraging all those hooks that were talked about earlier in the book. Then there's about 18 pages of magic items and some optional rules. The 3 big ones are different ways of doing rest, different ways of doing resurrections, and different ways of handling potions. And these all tie into the world setting and have some ideas on just ways to give players a little more agency, I think. Lastly, there's about 60 pages of monsters and NPCs. Several of those are about existing typical D&D creatures, how they're different in this setting, how they fit into the setting. And then there's quite a few original creatures in here as well. And some of them are campaign-specific variants. So you have golems that are specific to this setting, that are different than your typical golems. You have skeletons that are specific to this setting, that are different from your typical ones. So centaurs play a big part of the setting. Have you looked into Critical Role much?
I know what centaurs are, right? Aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't really looked
so
into Critical
their
Role
centaurs and orcs share a common ancestry with elves. So there's some interesting things going in there. So centaurs play kind of a bigger part in the setting. So they have a centaur skeleton as an explicit call out in the monster section. I thought it was an interesting notion.
Basically,
Not
Critical
something you see
Role
typically.
creatures are very much noticeable compared to other creatures because you just know.
Most D&D things are going to fit in, but then there's some other stuff that's specific to Tal'Dorei, and because of that, they're detailed here.
I could dig that.
Yeah. And then they also give you the stats for the Vox Machina characters, but it's 20 years later. So after their big adventures have already taken place, here's where they're at. And so if you're really digging those characters, here's an opportunity to catch up with them, see where their lives might have gone. Darrington Press, it's hardcover, full color, very nicely illustrated, 280 pages and $50, and we do have it here on the shelf at Immortals. Let's see if I can find, just a few cool looking pieces of artwork.
Ooh, I like it.
Through. Yeah, it's up here. If you're interested, stop in and take a look or hit up immortalsinc.com.
Very well said by the man himself. Links all down below. Thank you all for watching. Happy holidays.
Good gaming until next time, folks.